All right, so this thing here that we're going to talk about is probably more familiar to you, the fact that if you heat something up, you can get more to dissolve. So what I have over here is called a solubility curve, and you'll notice it's temperature versus grams of solute per 100 grams of water. And most of these substances on this chart have a positive slope, meaning if you heat it up, more stuff is going to dissolve. You'll see NaCl right here. Salt actually isn't that much more soluble as you heat it up, but it does increase a little bit, and most substances do. So when we're talking about solids, almost always, not always, but usually, if you increase the temperature, it's going to become more soluble. Again, that sweet tea that I was talking about in the last video, if you heat it up, you can get more and more sugar to dissolve. Okay. Now, gases, on the other hand, are actually the opposite. Usually, if you heat them up, they are less soluble. So I want you to think of soda. Right? We usually drink soda cold, okay? And that is because if it's cold, more of that CO2, those bubbles are actually dissolving into the liquid. If it's warm, it's going to be really flat. Not as many gas particles are going to be dissolved. So gases are usually less soluble as you heat them up. So think of the fact that soda is more bubbly when it is cold, CO2 bubbles in soda. So if I gave you this graph, you would look at it and be like, SO2 is probably a gas. Oh, NH3 is probably a gas because their solubility actually decreases as it is heated, which is true, like I said, for most gases. Pressure, on the other hand, pressure doesn't affect solids and their solubility, but it does affect gases because gases are compressible, right? So again, I want you to think of a can of soda. If I've got a can of soda closed, it is pressurized, a lot of that CO2 is going to be dissolved in the liquid. If you open it and release that pressure, you'll notice a bunch of the CO2, the bubbles are actually going to come out. So under pressure, gases are more soluble. So if you increase the pressure, you increase the solubility. So again, when we're talking about gases, think of a can of soda. You want it to be cold and you want it to be closed or pressurized because that's when the most CO2 is dissolved. That's when it is the most bubbly. So those are two really important factors that affect solubility.